Standard, politically deft, humble, but today is really a day where he takes the gloves off, at least rhetorically. He's going to be diving into some of the most divisive political issues here, particularly during a presidential race. Immigration, abortion, religious freedom. We've talked a lot about how a third of the members of the Congress are Catholic, but certainly this message for all faiths, certainly both parties, and really a message today for all Americans, and delivered crucially in English. This morning, Pope Francis making another historic stop on his whirlwind U.S. tour, this time speaking before Congress on Capitol Hill, a first for any pope.
There's one thing we know about this pope. He's not afraid to take on the status quo, or not afraid to say what he really thinks.
House Speaker John Boehner and Vice President Joe Biden, two of the most prominent Catholics in Washington, will be seated right behind the Pope, who may touch on divisive political topics such as same-sex marriage, abortion, even the Iran deal. At the White House Wednesday, a preview of sorts as the pontiff tackled immigration.
As the son of an immigrant family, I'm happy to be a guest in this country, which was largely built by such families.
He also spoke out strongly on climate change.
Climate change is a problem we can no longer be left to a future generation. When it comes to the care of our common home, we are living at a critical moment of history.
For him, these are issues of the gospel because they affect people, especially the poor, and he sees himself as a man on the side of the poor.
In keeping with his style, the Pope has decided to forego a lunch with members of Congress. Instead, after his address, he will go to Catholic Charities, where he'll meet with some 200 homeless. The Pope will arrive on the Hill about 9 o'clock. He'll begin his address at about 10 o'clock. But really, Chris, almost as quickly as he can, he'll be leaving the surroundings, the confines of the Capitol to go meet with homeless people. That is this Pope. He is most comfortable when he's connecting with real people, people in need. And this is a Pope of gestures. That has a message as well, right? Because this is the message he has to the church. It's a message that he has to Catholics, but really citizens of the world, and certainly both parties of Congress. Get out there, help people. There are people in need.
He is going to talk politics, but he is no politician. He calls himself a missionary of mercy, and that's why he wants to be around those who need us the most. Jimmy, thank you very much. Very big day for us as journalists, but also as Catholics, prominent Catholics from both sides of the aisle, including Vice President Joe Biden and House Speaker John Boehner, who's the one who gave this invitation to the Pope. They are going to greet Pope Francis when he arrives. But what else can we expect from this very significant event? CNN senior Washington correspondent Jeff Zeleny live on the east front of the Capitol, awaiting Pope Francis's arrival. Jeff.
Good morning, Chris. We are on the east front of the Capitol, as you said. Just to give you a sense of perspective here, we are between the Capitol building and the Supreme Court. You can see right behind me here, this is the House of Representatives. This is where Pope Francis will address that joint meeting of Congress. The first time ever a Pope will do this. He'll arrive in about 3 hours. He'll be greeted right here by Speaker John Boehner, who did extend that invitation to the Pope really more than a year ago. He'll also be greeted by Vice President Joe Biden, the first Catholic U.S. Vice President. Interesting, in that room today, in this House of Representative chambers, more than 30% of members of Congress are actually Catholic. 6 of 9 Supreme Court justices are Catholic, and 4 of those justices will be on hand for the address today. As we said, there is definitely some discomfort from some Republicans who think the Pope is going to be too tough on them, on climate change, on the environment. Some Democrats are a little nervous about his message on abortion. But Speaker John Boehner, he's urging all of his members to listen with an open heart. He said this is not a day for politics. And so many members of Congress I have spoken to about this, Chris, they say that the Pope's teachings do not necessarily fit into today's liberal box or conservative box. So they're going to be listening to him as though it was a State of the Union address. There will be applause. There will be some members standing up. So there's going to be not a raucous setting, but inside this House of Representative chambers, it is going to be a moment for them to listen to him speak. But there's going to be a lot of activity out here in about 3 hours when the papal fiat drives up through the Capitol here, and he's met by Speaker John Boehner and Vice President Joe Biden. Chris?
Well, Jeff, there's no question that for the Pope and for the Catholic Church, issues like being a steward of humanity and of the environment and poverty and tolerance are part of the catechism, part of the teaching. But make no mistake, we both know this is definitely about politics today. So let's bring back Jim Sciutto and bring in senior political reporter Manu Raggio and CNN chief political correspondent Dana Bash. It is good to have you all here. Dana, I'll start with you. Is it even an issue what Republicans and maybe even Democrats might say in response to the Pope that would create a hostility or a tension? And do you believe that's a possibility that someone could come at the Pope?
During the actual speech?
No, not like throwing tomatoes, but
well, I mean, in this environment, that wouldn't be out of bounds.
Yeah, do you think there's a chance that afterwards,
moment,
like you have a Chris Christie moment, not just saying that he's not infallible when it comes to politics, where they're like, he should be quiet, he shouldn't talk. Do you think anybody would be that bold?
Yes. Afterwards,
Yeah.
Sure, of course. I think that there definitely are members of Congress who have no qualms about saying that they disagree with what he said and that he should, stick to religion and not delve into politics as he has. But I cannot imagine a situation where there is not an overwhelming sense of happiness, of respect during the actual speech. I mean, everybody to a person should understand that this is historic and welcoming.
And also, tone is so big in politics, right, Manu? So, yes, the content of this global warming, right there, full stop, you have a division in Congress of people who believe that. No, it's not 50-50, but you have those who say it's just not true. But tone is everything. Yeah. And what we hear from those who are close to Pope Francis in preparation for this, as we saw yesterday, it's not just what he says, it's how he says it. He's coming from a positive place, a good place. That's going to matter.
Right? And I think the members will respond respectfully. And it's actually been interesting that the leadership on both sides has told the members not to express their appreciation or their disapproval of his remarks in any sort of way that would present a partisan response.
Something, right?
Yeah, well, they sort of just told their members, don't stand up and cheer like it's a State of the Union address. Try to act respectfully. But, of course, this is a pretty partisan place, so we'll see if members actually abide by that. But I do agree with Dana. I mean, I don't think you'll see members actually express their disapproval during the speech. But afterwards, you'll probably hear a lot of Republicans speak skeptically, particularly about his message on global warming.
All right, now we have the politics of it, very important, but the practicality is even more important. Jimmy, what do you know in terms of D.C.'s all about security? They know how to do this, but there are some special considerations here. We saw them yesterday. It's a very fluid situation. How do they feel about today?
Well, they've described it as an inauguration of the State of the Union all wrapped up into one. I mean, this is, as you know, a secure town by its nature, but I've never seen it like this. I mean, the level of security, when you go down, whole streets are closed. They talk about, they had a $15 million budget just for fences, right, to keep people back, these bike rack fences to keep people back. And, of course, people are bursting at the seams because they want to get closer to this guy. It's a particular challenge because of his personality. He's a guy who does not like to stand at a distance from his people. And you saw that yesterday when he was doing that little loop around the White House. He was in his footmobile. You can kind of almost feel him wanting to reach out. So that's a challenge, and they want to allow him to be himself, and not just here, but as he goes to New York. But just one thought occurred to me as Jeff Zeleny was speaking. He said, when the papal fiat arrived, that sounds like some sort of decision from on high. No, that's his car.
The best product placement maybe ever is that fiat. I can't wait until the story comes out about how many they sold after the Pope came, because people are like, I want that. So there is this presumption that global warming, boy, that's going to get the Republicans. So a big shot Democrat I see yesterday says that to me, and I say, how are you going to feel when the Pope looks you in the eye and says you have a duty, a natural right to protect the unborn? How's that going to feel? What do you think hurts more politically, global warming or protect children?
Well, I think Democrats and Republicans each have something to kind of feel a punch in the gut on when it comes to the Pope. But the difference now is that Democrats, especially those who are Catholic, they're used to feeling like that. They're used to having an issue with the Pope politically on abortion and more recently on gay rights. So that is something that, they kind of have had to deal with. And so you've heard from Democrats for years, well, we love the Pope when it comes to religion. We're going to stay out of politics. Now it's the Republicans' turn to do this, which I really think is interesting. But one other point that I want to make, which I think is fascinating, that the House Speaker, who is not only a Catholic, he grew up going to Mass every day. He is one of 12. His parents owned a bar and sent all 12 of them to Catholic school. He has been asking for the Pope. This is the third Pope he's asked to come here. And he finally, after 20 years, along with Nancy Pelosi, also a Catholic, got him to come.
Why? Just because he's a Catholic? What does he think the significance is?
Well, I think it's because he's a Catholic, but also because, and he has said that, you know, for him personally, it's incredibly significant, but because he believes that he is somebody who can kind of get the country's spiritual house in order in a way that, you know, really no one else on the planet can. So watching that, especially with John Boehner, who really doesn't tend to kind of get excited about things,